Hey everybody, in today's video we are talking about the number one pillar in online book arbitrage, which is sourcing. So this is video number 2 of a 6-part series. So if you missed the introduction where we mention all 5 pillars, I'll put a link below. But in this video we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into sourcing. So we're going to talk about before you get started and the recommended tools. We're going to talk about different types of book flipping software that are out there. We're going to talk about the websites you're going to go to, the book formats, the titles and subject, and the ISBNs. We're going to talk about the myths of sourcing. And finally, we're going to talk about book flipping strategies. All right, so if you're brand new to selling on Amazon, what you need to know after you sign up or in the process of signing up is there's an individual plan and there's a professional plan. Now, when you actually start doing this business, you absolutely want to be on the professional plan. And the reason is what you see here on the screen. The most important thing is the eligibility for listing placement in the featured offer, as they describe it, or what most of us know it as the buy box. You want to be eligible for the buy box. So you definitely want to be on the professional plan. Now, the one thing I can try to save you a little bit of money if you're brand new. What you want to, when you first sign up, don't sign up for the professional plan. Sign up for the individual plan. And this is if you don't have any inventory yet, right? So what you want to do is start getting some inventory, buying your inventory, then shipping it to Amazon, and then once they have it, you can convert from the individual plan to the professional plan, right? So you try to save you a little bit of money. There's no reason to sign up day one for the professional plan. You can start your account with the individual. So that is the first thing you'll need to know about. The second thing you'll need to know about is using Keepa. So there's a Chrome extension called Keepa, and you can go to keepa.com for more information. But this is really going to give you a lot of valuable information for Amazon price tracking. Okay, it's a very, very important tool, and I'm going to tell you that you need it, right? There are some people that are going to tell you don't need Keepa to do online book arbitrage. I'm not going to be one of them. If you start using our service and you're not doing well, this will be one of the first questions I ask you. Next, you need to understand restricted inventory. Now, here's where I don't want you to get in trouble as far as trying to sell books that you're not allowed to sell. I have an entire video on it. I will put a link below so you can hop on over there and understand a little bit more about restricted inventory. All right. And lastly, if you are located outside the United States, you likely need a prep center. So I will put a link below to prep centers. I don't have one specific that I can recommend for you. I have my own private prep centers that I use. But if you want to send me an email or something at some point down the road, if I have one or have several to recommend, I will do that. Okay. So those are the basic things you need to get started. All right, so let's talk about the book flipping software options and formats. All right, so if you remember in the first introductory video, I talked about sourcing being one of the most important pillars, right? If not the most important, right? You need to source. You need to have inventory in stock in order to be able to get sales, etc. All right, so one of the big advantages of this business model, of course, is the ability to work anywhere, anytime, with your laptop computer, as long as you've got internet. All right, so that is really awesome. And the big thing, one of the other big advantages that I think you don't hear enough about is really saving you a ton of time doing a book business, right? There's other business models that are out there regarding selling books on Amazon, but I don't think they're going to save you the amount of time that this format is going to save you. However, a big part of that and where we start is with sourcing, right? So if you're not using a good tool to source, it is going to take you a lot longer. All right, so let me go over the different options you have out there, the things that I know about that are out there for doing book flipping in terms of software. So there's some companies out there that will send you just book leads. Okay, that's all they're going to do is send you book leads, either by email or you log into their website and they say, hey, look at this book, it's good to go. Now that does work. There are some downsides though. Number one, I think you want to stay away from the ones that are entirely bot driven. And if you've heard about our service, we do have book leads, but I don't think they're really in this class of book leads where they're entirely bot driven. Okay. The other thing is this can be oftentimes a lot more expensive than using a large scale software, which I'll talk about next, because you're paying by the lead. Sometimes you pay, whatever it might be, however they organize it, but oftentimes it's going to be a little bit more expensive, or in some cases a lot more expensive, just going with book leads. All right, so that's the first one. The second one is what I'll call specialized large-scale software, and that's what we are too, right? This is where we give you a lot of the ability to buy an awful lot of books, and we give you a lot of data behind the books. Now, I'll break this down to two different flavors. The first one is what I say is a large database, and the approach generally is a pull approach. What I mean by that is you'll have access to millions of books that are for sale on Amazon, and you will go in using filters to find the books that are profitable. All right, so let me show you this example to kind of illustrate it. So if you can see here, we've got a bunch of red dots and blue dots and green dots. I don't know how well you can see them. I'll try to make it a little easier for you to see. So the red dots really represent, let's say, millions of books. I don't know the number exactly matters. There may be up to 20 million or more books for sale on Amazon. But what you need to understand, I think, when you come into doing online book arbitrage is that 99.9% or more, really it's or more, of those books that are for sale are complete junk when it comes to online book flipping, okay? You're not going to be able to flip 99.9%. Now that sounds like, oh, there's hardly any books to flip. No, that's not true, right? There are, on any given day, a minimum hundreds or thousands, but I don't think that there are tens of thousands. There's certainly not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. There's certainly not millions of books that you're going to be able to flip. So let me give you just three very quick examples. Number one, there's tons, millions of books that are very low priced, right? That for a book flipper, those aren't ones you want to see. If Amazon is selling a new book, for $5.99 or even $10.99 or even $20, you don't. Those are generally books that you're not going to be able to flip, right? You're not going to be able to flip them with our business model that we're talking about here. The other thing, there's of course millions of books that have a very, very high rank. Not to give you some exact numbers, but when you do online book arbitrage, most sellers will know this right away, that you're unable to do a very low, a book that sells very, very quickly. And now when I say very, very quickly, if you try to look at any of the first 1,000 books that are by sales rank, you're not going to be able to flip any of them. Most of them are very low priced. That's the main thing. So you want to stay away from the very low ranked books, and you also want to stay away from the very high ranked books, right? Using our service, we don't go over an average sales rank of 750,000. There are certainly book flips higher than that, but once you start getting in above 3, 4, 5 million, 10 million, that I don't think that's a way you can build a business. You will definitely find some book flips from time to time, but long story short, those aren't the type of books that you really want to see to build a business. The last quick example I'll give you is and this happens, all the time. There's millions of these out there where there's a low-priced book, a low-priced used book. Let's say that is at $45, and then there's brand new copies at $55. Very close, right? So those are other just three quick examples of books that you don't want to see. So the main way you're going to find them using this first flavor of the large-scale software is to use filters, right? The problem with that approach that I see, and from what I've experienced, is it is more difficult and going to take you longer to find as we can see here, the green ones, right? The green ones are the good flips that you want. The red ones are the complete junk that I've already mentioned. And then you've got those other ones in between, right? They may be profitable, but maybe they're a little bit higher risk. Now what we do is a little bit different. So we have a much smaller database. Now, when I say we have a much smaller database, we have access to all the same books as everyone else, but we know from a lot of experience and also some from common sense that we don't want to see those 99.9% books I've already mentioned, right? I'd rather find the ones that, give me the ones that are more likely to be flippable. That's what we're doing. That's what we want to look at. So in our approach, we're going to have a much different mix of books. We're going to have a lot more greens. We're going to have some of those blues, and we're going to have some reds, but we're certainly not going to have the same ratio as you saw in the other example. And the reason we do this is I've heard time and time again, people want to spend less time, right? They are taking too long to find books, all right? So we have not only the pull approach where you can go in and set filters and find the books, but we have the push approach, meaning we actually have real humans driving this, looking at book leads and putting them out there with all the data, right? We don't just send you an email, with just the leads themselves. We actually we actually give you all the data behind it, right? So we have a mixture of both the push approach and the pull approach, and the end result is you're able to find book flips very, very quickly. We're not going to get into the details of that in this video, by the way. We have something called a quick flip method, and if you're using our the human-driven book leads I described, they're called diamond flips. So basically, you're going to find book flips using our software in just a few seconds every day when you access it. The other thing I'll mention regarding software, and this isn't really software, but it's at least a resource for you if you want to dip your toe in this. We do give out free book flips once a week, at least once a week. We have a new free Facebook group. I'll put a link here and a link below if you're interested in that. All right, but the bottom line is we did this to save you time and to get better results. All right, next, let's talk about websites, book formats, subject matter, and ISBNs. All right, so websites. So primarily we do source the vast majority of our books from Amazon, and that's what the data is based upon. And this is the same for most softwares out there, right? Where we're buying from Amazon and we're selling on Amazon. So there are other websites, though. The one I'll just mention that will really redirect you to a lot of them is called bookfinder.com. And using our software, we do have a link to them. A lot of our customers do like to use that website to find other books, or you can go to eBay or things like that. So sometimes the books are going to be cheaper on those websites than Amazon. We have found that most of the time the prices are cheaper on Amazon, but that's certainly not the case all the time. All right. The other thing you want to understand about doing online book arbitrage is the, I guess I'll combine this a little bit, the book formats and the ISBNs and the ASINs. So the ASIN, that is a number that Amazon assigns to every single product. And with the vast majority of books, the 10-digit ISBN is the ASIN, okay? And what you need to understand is that is what drives the identification of the book in which you're trying to flip. So in this example, you see this book has a hardcover, a paperback, and a loose leaf. But it's that 10-digit ISBN that you're going to get in our software that's going to tell you, hey, this book might be something that you want to flip. And that is the driver that identifies the book. So let's say it was the paperback. You would not look or care what the hardcover or the loose leaf was selling for or anything like that. You're really just focused in on that. And along those same lines, when you purchase a book, you're waiting for it to come in the mail. When it arrives or when your prep center gets it, it's really that 10-digit ISBN that should match what you purchased, right? And you'll always see that in the details of whether you purchase on Amazon or on some other website. Okay, so that's kind of important to understand, is that basically the ISBN or the ASIN always drives the book that we're talking about. All right, let's talk about subject matter. All right, do you need to be an expert on books and know subjects on which books are flippable and which are not? The quick answer is no, you do not. But what you do need to understand that there are some books that, although you should be looking at the Keepa chart, which I mentioned early on, there are book titles that are going to not reflect the future demand in the Keepa charts. Okay, so for example, a book that maybe has the year in the title of the book, right? Oftentimes these are replaced from year to year, like tax books. Sometimes law books have them. Sometimes you'll have a calendar book, right? It's going to lose demand very quickly when another edition comes out that is replacing it with more pertinent, timely information that a user would want to purchase. So you don't need to be an expert, but you do need to keep that in mind when you're looking at the subjects of a book. So that's a little bit about the book formats, the subject, the ISBNs, and the websites. All right, let's go on to next. All right, this is a good one. Myths on sourcing. This one's big. Now, I am going to put out a future video, maybe with a different title that goes into this a little bit more depth. But since sourcing is such an important part of the business, I figured we better attack and mention some of these things here. All right, the first one is only buying acceptable books, right? So I don't know who started this. Maybe somebody can tell me why it was said that you shouldn't be flipping acceptable books, right? I'm going to follow that up with water damage books, all right? Now, I was guilty of these things early on, and I've since changed my position tremendously on both of these. And part of the reason I think that got me there was the condition guidelines. Amazon changed them, I think, in 2019. They didn't really publicize it. They do that, right? They just change it, and you have to just know or go look it up. So we looked it up, and now they actually include their minor water damage, okay? Now, first of all, there is no, let me bundle these two things together a little bit. There is no rule out there that's saying that you can't, there's no Amazon rule or anything like that that's saying you can't flip acceptable books, okay? But more importantly, why I'm going to tell you it's perfectly okay is because I've done it and I do it all the time, and the data tells me that it's perfectly fine, okay? If you are marking up your books correctly in the condition notes, letting them know it's acceptable, it's got this problem, it's got that problem, it's got minor water damage, it's going to be fine. That's the experience I have had, okay? And I don't just base this on a few books. We do a very, very good job of tracking information, and that information is going to help you make better decisions. So me tracking lots and lots of information tells me very clearly that there's absolutely nothing wrong with buying acceptable books and water damage books to flip, okay? For some of you, you're going to have to figure that out on your own. I first started, I don't think that I did many acceptable books. I didn't do water damage books. I will tell you that right off the bat. In fact, if you look back at some of the early stuff we put out there with Master Book Flippers, I told you back then, or it's one of the things we didn't put out there, but clearly we look at our returns. Customers are not returning the books. If you put there it's a water damaged book, customers know that, and you're getting a good deal, they're getting a good deal, everybody wins. And oftentimes if you actually look at books, if you handle the books yourself, you see, okay, hey, it's no big deal, you know, it's got a little bit of water damage, perfectly readable. Poor college students, guess what? That's what they want, okay? So that is the first one, or the second one, acceptable books and water damage. All right, the next is expensive books. All right, if you're doing online book arbitrage, it's going to be really expensive books. All right, so this is definitely not true, okay? You know, I recently went into a local store just to see what the prices were, and I was surprised, right, on some of the prices that you find in a thrift shop or in a Goodwill to buy locally. But there are tons and tons of low-priced books. In fact, if you're just starting out, I actually recommend that you start off with some of these low-priced books. Buy lots of them. Why? First of all, it's going to teach you on pricing. You're going to know that, hey, this does work. I can buy inexpensive books. I don't need to spend, you know, $40, $50, $60, $70 on a textbook and then wait for textbook season, right? Start off with these low-priced books, and oftentimes they're really good because the ROI can oftentimes be better than the high-priced books, okay? So that is definitely not accurate as far as the price of the books. We buy, in fact, you're going to find inexpensive books off of Amazon, right? Especially on eBay. I've purchased lots of books less than $5 on eBay and been able to flip those easily, right? So another benefit of doing that, right, is you are lessening your risk, right? If you're only buying a $4 book, what is the absolute worst thing that can happen? You're going to lose $4 somehow, some way, right? But the probability of that happening, if you're following all the information, reading the keeper charts and all that stuff, is pretty darn low. All right, so that is definitely a myth that online book arbitrage is only expensive. All right, that dovetails nicely into the next one, which is textbooks. All right, we need to do, anytime you do online book arbitrage, it has to do with textbooks. Okay, that's certainly not true. Oftentimes what I just referred to regarding the non-expensive books, or the cheap books, if you want to look at it that way, is they are non-textbooks oftentimes, right? Textbooks are as well. You can definitely find cheap textbooks, but the point is this business is not revolved all around textbooks. In fact, we keep tens of thousands of records on which books are textbooks and which are non-textbooks. And especially if you're restricted, which most sellers are, on textbooks, and I'll put a link below on there. I already mentioned that, but the point is you will find more books to flip that are actually non-textbooks than textbooks. All right. Now, if you haven't experienced that and you haven't, then you probably haven't used our software. Okay, let me put that out there. So when I say these things, they really are. They are out there. We have the data, and these are the types of things that we give to our customers, especially during textbook season. We will typically give you non-textbooks, right? There are going to be textbooks that you're going to want to buy year-round, but we know that is not always the case during a strong textbook season, so we throw in a lot more non-textbooks. And then as we get through, for example, like in November, October, November, December especially, we're going to start throwing a lot more textbooks at you because I know people are going to want to buy textbooks to sell in January. All right, so that was the fourth one, textbooks. The next one is it takes a long time to find books, even using the software. All right, so I already mentioned that briefly, but that is definitely not the case using our software. And that is one of the biggest complaints we hear about people is, oh, it takes so long, it's expensive, this, that, and the other thing about finding books. Okay, we don't get those complaints from our customers, right? You're going to find books literally in seconds. We're not going to get into the details. I'll put a link below where you can watch our other videos. We talk about the quick flip method and our diamond flips. You know, we find those profitable books for you. So not a big deal finding books quickly to source. All right, let's talk about next. All right, book flipping strategies. All right, so the first book flipping strategy, which you may have heard, is price gap. Okay, so what does that mean? That is probably the most common, and all that means is that we're looking for a difference between the lowest used price and the lowest FBA price, and that's going to give you a real strong signal that that book may be flippable. All right, so that's one strategy. It's actually a big strategy that a lot of people talk about, and sometimes I think they over talk about it and oversimplify it. If you remember early on, I talked about the keeper charts. You should be looking at the keeper charts. And the other thing that I realize is that if you were to only use this strategy, I got a little secret for you guys. All right, some of the FBA sellers out there, they don't know what they're doing. Okay, they really don't. They don't know how to price their books. They're pricing them either way too low. Okay, in which case, if you use this strategy, you're not going to find that, right? They're priced way too low, or they're priced way too high. All right, so going back to what I said, look at the keeper charts. It'll give you an indication, and I'll tell you some of the other. When we get down to the fourth and fifth ones, you'll have a better understanding of this. But so that's the most common approach that folks come to find with a strategy is looking for those differences, and we do that very, very well for you. But that's the first one. All right, the second one is timing the market or looking for trends. So again, this has to do with using the keeper charts and seeing, with textbooks, sometimes without textbooks, but really trying to look and say, hey, is the demand going to pick up? And then you are less concerned with really what that price gap is. All right. And if you notice in this example here, I put out, this was on our Facebook page, I put this out in November. And at the time when I had posted this, the lowest used price was about $40 and the lowest FBA was $60. Okay, now with that $20 gap, I will tell you just off the top of my head, there's very little, if any, profit in there. But what I was suggesting with this exact ASIN was, hey, don't always look at the price gap, right? Look at the trends. And this trend to me was obvious, okay? And this comes with time, by the way. So I put this out there, and sure enough, in January, the lowest price was, I think it was, the lowest FBA was 99. And now, actually, as I make this video, you can always look at the keeper charts in this, right? In September of 2020, the price is now the lowest price, I believe, overall. Lowest used is almost $150, something like that. All right. So I just want to emphasize to you the importance of, also looking at trends, and don't just look at the price gap. All right. So the next strategy is, you may have heard this, is buy wide or buy deep. So here's an example of that. Buying wide simply means buying lots of books. If you're going to spend $500 on books initially, or whatever you're going to spend, maybe you buy lots of different books, as opposed to buying lots of copies of the exact same book. Both strategies work. I definitely tell people, if you're starting off, I do not recommend buying deep. I recommend buying wide. Buying deep is faster, right? It's easier to click on your mouse and say, give me 10 copies of that book, instead of going and looking to buy 10 different copies of different titled books. All right. So those are strategies out there for buying wide or buying deep. All right, next we'll talk about briefly is trade-ins. So in 2019, we did really, really well with trade-ins, especially with our software. We're able to find those gaps between what you could purchase for the book and what Amazon was willing to pay for the book to you. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about trade-ins for probably a while, because in early 2020, when we had COVID, Amazon discontinued that program from what we can tell. We still track the data, but the data is always empty because they are not offering trade-ins. So if and when they start doing trade-ins again, we have that information, or maybe I'll talk more about trade-ins, because we made a lot of money with trade-ins, and the great thing about trade-ins is very, very low risk. But they're not available right now, so we're not going to talk much about that, but that is out there. All right, next, we've sort of already talked about this, is just the strategy of just doing one type of inventory. A lot of people would focus and say, hey, I'm going to buy textbooks and only textbooks. I don't do that. I don't recommend that. I recommend having a good mix. I'd rather have a solid base of income and profit every month, and then during textbook season, because I have a good mix, my sales and profits go up during textbook season, but they maintain steady, and I'm not left with no inventory or very little inventory at the end of textbook season. So constantly generating those sales month in and month out. All right. All right. This last strategy I'm going to call is rebuying. And if you're brand new, you're probably not going to be able to do this. And this is important though. When you start selling books, what you want to do is you'll start to get a better understanding of what the books sell for. Okay, so what I mean by that is the keeper charts are good, but they're not going to tell you everything. And what they don't tell you clearly is what exactly did a book sell for, a book FBA, and what was the customer willing to pay. Okay, now my experience, I know looking at books and other factors, I'm very, very confident when I buy a book that it's going to do well. I don't ask myself those questions. And I could sit here all day and tell you, do this, do that. But there will be no substitute for experiencing this yourself. Okay, so this is why I talked about earlier, buy some cheap books if you're going to do online book arbitrage, and then you will see, and you'll say to yourself, wow, I can't believe that customer paid $69.50 for this book when they could have bought a merchant fulfilled for $18, something like that, right? Happens every day. And the way you're going to know this, when you start selling books, here's what I want you to do. The moment you sell a book, you get the notification or whatever you can, as soon as you can after you sell it, go on Amazon and look at that book, and you'll see what the lowest merchant fulfilled price was, and you'll also see what the other FBA sellers. Sometimes you were the lowest, sometimes you're not the lowest, okay? But that is going to be invaluable for you to gain experience. You cannot gain experience in this business by watching this video or any other, okay? So I may be getting off topic, but I hope it's helpful to know that the rebuying comes from that experience, right? Or you have titles. I purchase the same titles over and over and over again because I have a lot of data, okay? Because I have a lot of experience, but also because I'm tracking it, okay? Which we'll talk about in a future video, all right? So that is another strategy. Track your purchases. Then you have a real good confidence on what a book's going to sell for, what someone's willing to pay for it at an FBA over a merchant fulfilled. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is video number 2 of the 6-part series where we're going to go over the other 4 pillars of online book arbitrage. And if you want to check out our other resources, we've got a free quick start guide. We've got our Facebook group with free book leads. And if you want to get started right now, you can try any one of our plans for free at masterbookflippers.com. Thank you.